All right, I am going to call the meeting to order. Policy Committee meeting agenda, October 21, 2024. And if you can all rise.
To the flag of the United America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, and if we could do the roll call.
Sure, William Hayes.
Here.
Sorry. McIntyre. Here. Vice Chair Crystal Bennett. Jonathan Croft.
Here.
Jenin Holmes.
Thank you.
Drew Mull.
Here.
Chris Jakubowski.
Here.
Nate Baumke.
Here.
Monica Gary. Marcy Parker.
Here.
Robert Schneider.
Here.
Dante Diggs.
Present.
Dr. Pamela Young.
Present.
David Brown. Jason Graham. Gerald Childress. Jacob Lane. Kathy Coffey. And Joe Stansbury. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, fantastic. And can I get a motion for approval of the October 21, 2024 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, just if item 7C, we could make an action item as well.
Okay.
It's just a typo, we got to put that. It's the same as all these other resolutions in the consent. agenda.
Amended.
Yeah.
So, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Right. On to public hearings. You want to go ahead?
Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments on a resolution 2414, 2415, or 2514, 2515, 2516? Those are both transportation improvement program projects to add items to the tip. We've had the 30 days public comment, and now there's a hearing. So if any member of the public wishes to speak, now's your opportunity. Or if you're online, a member of the public, and you wish to speak, now is your opportunity. Becky, hearing none, do we have any written comments that came in via email?
Yes, sir, we do. From Michael Meyer for Resolution 2510. No more funding for any FAMPO Fred bus services. It's a taxpayer-funded, run, underutilized service that should be discontinued and replaced with 2 small passenger vans at best. Now the service is running fair. Waste, fraud, and abuse our tax dollars on full public display of empty buses. Resolution 2511. No more funding for any FXBGO Fred bus services. A driving simulator, really? School bus drivers don't even have that, and they carry multiple loads of our children every day. Fred staff hung the good idea pinata out, and after beating it senseless, this is what fell out. Ridiculous, no. From John Walker, I have a comment to item 4, resolution 2511, with regards to the driving simulator. Isn't there some sort of software maintenance cost associated with it, both long-term and short-term? No other comment. That was his comment, and we have no other comment.
And where were,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, where were those people from?
I don't know where they're from.
Okay,
Their name was John Walker, the last comment, and Michael Meyer.
you.
Madam Chair, just now I have 4 members from staff, but
Okay.
we need to just have 3 at the. We don't mind which ones. All up. There we go.
All right, well, we're on to the,
Well,
yes.
on the call.
Yes, anybody from the public would like to speak? Any issues?
I'll time it.
Because we always look forward to your comments.
I'll have to be quick since I actually have to go to another meeting too. Alan Watkins, 12 England Run Lane, George Washington. I basically wanted to speak about the river crossing in that we have at the CTAC committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, has spent the last couple of meetings speaking for well over 2 hours regarding the river crossing. Only using the information that we have available, which of course is the environmental information. We haven't got to look at any of the traffic counts or anything at this point in time. But our discussions have ranged regarding those 5 different options, A, B1, B2, C, and D, and looked at those to see, because as Mr. Hollis has said accurately so often, those are right now just really lines on a map. Essentially, what's happening is there's going to be a starting point. Let's say if it's north, it's going to be along Commerce Parkway in Santa County. And then ultimately it's going down to Gordon Shelton Boulevard somewhere, most likely down in the city of Fredericksburg. So it's from point A to point B. It's just a question of where those lines ultimately travel, whatever impact it has on the environment, and of course, whatever is an efficient route as well. So since the CTAC has been involved in those discussions and kind of arrived at a few things, and we'll discuss it further and still. But we are hoping that since we are an advisory committee, that we will have potentially an opportunity to come before the policy committee after the November 20th meeting and talk to you about what we have looked at and what our concerns were and whatever recommendations we might have. That's it. Okay.
Thank you.
Very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this time? And anyone online?
We've got a couple written comments.
And yes, written comments, please.
We have several to this evening. From Abraham Mordova. Hi. Is there any road project for Mine Road? If not, please, we need more lane, more wider and sidewalk for pedestrian and bikes. From Angelique Stewart.
Lots.
My neighborhood has no sidewalks,
Staff.
leaving my child and the children of the neighborhood only the street lane. Anonymous. I want to compliment Eugene Huang. Troops were received during our outreach sessions recently. There needs to be lights that function and illuminate the sidewalks in front of the Spotsylvania Hospital. It's very dangerous in the evening when I walk. From Daisy Days. I live right downtown and walk remotely. While I can drive, I prefer not to. I think walking and biking is a great form of exercise and reduces carbon emission. While I love traversing my city, a concern is always safety in the car-centric areas. I'm worried about crossing. Biking especially is a fast form of movement. However, we are expected to share the streets with dangerous, impatient cars. This keeps me from biking on busy streets to get to grocery stores or public events. I love the bike trails, but unfortunately they don't always connect or lead to places I need to go. I dream of a world where we can bike with our children to school, reach areas of interest safely, and interact with our community more. A safe commute for the young and elderly alike. A world with less car accidents and overall better health. Mahong Johnson. And these, I think we're not complete. I'll read what has been written here. I'm a commuter, so I need to drive about 30 minutes to school every day. And the traffic along Route 3 to Route 1 are horrible in the morning. I was wondering if and the comment ends. Jeanette Hernandez. And I'm not sure how to pronounce the rest of that name. As a widow and mother of a special needs child, I work full time and am unable to transport my daughter sometimes. Could you please consider having more transportation for the special needs located Stafford? If you need more information, please contact me. Thank you, Jeanette. And she left her contact information. That concludes our.
So just
Thank
a
you.
comment to the members. that these comments come from tables. So our new public engagement officer, Eugene, has been going out to doing tables at farmers markets and downtown and all over in all 3 jurisdictions. And these are people who filled in comments at the table. So it really shows that we're actually out there. And these coffee mugs, which we've given you all one of tonight, just a inexpensive giveaway. You know, we've got a small marketing budget. And so Eugene has produced these mugs. It's got a cool slogan, let's make travel better. We hope you like it. If you don't, you can tell us, we won't print any more. But it's got the FAMPO logo on and just shows roadways and maybe rail lines. So it's just an interesting quirky mug that Eugene will be giving away. We didn't print many of them. We just got a few to hand out at tables.
Thank you. Dr.
Chair, I
Young?
have a question on the comments. Is it okay if I get the Stafford special needs one as well as know where this mine road is? Is it in Stafford or is it in Spotsylvania?
It's the Spotsylvania line.
Oh, it is.
That's what I thought.
We've heard-
Okay, cross it out.
Then I would like the Spotsylvania Mine Road one.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, great.
I mean, it
We'll send
doesn't
them,
have any phone numbers or anything, right?
Oh,
Oh, good. All right.
we'll send them to you.
All right, great.
They're
in-
linked from. our
Yeah.
Agenda online.
Great.
All right, on to 7A, the approval of the September 16 minutes.
Madam Chair, this is all on consent.
Consent. So if you want,
Everything's on
Oh,
consent.
okay, all right.
I'll
Sorry,
make a
my
motion
apologies.
To approve the consent agenda, but I do have a comment on the meeting minutes.
Okay. Do I have a
Second.
second? Okay,
Okay, so the only thing I would like to reference in there under the category of action items, it was after Ian's report. That we need to make sure that all the acronyms are spelled out. So
Okay.
if people want to look them up, they can make it a little easier. So it's under action discussion items. Like
Right.
the tip isn't spelled out, CMAC, STBG, CR. So we just need to make sure that all the other acronyms are, but I think on a consistent basis, we should make sure they're all spelled out. That's all I had.
point taken, we will get it done.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. All right, Ian.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to actually stand up front. I have a partner in crime. Speak today. I want to start off by talking about this thing that we call Project Venus. It's just a staff level analysis of the future network of transportation systems, the rail lines, the traffic, etc. Right? Future integrated network analysis. It's just a name we made up. It's not from some spooky book or some textbook at a university. It's just our own internal staff name. The staff level analysis we're doing, dealing with congestion, looking at the future of congestion, infrastructure investment, and transportation outcomes in our region. Part of our job as staff is to keep you updated with what's going on in the transportation system so that you can make better decisions. You make the decisions, we provide information. This is another set of information that we're working on to give you, right? It begins with looking at population estimates and the new travel demand model. Now, some of us, you know about this, that we're the fastest growing region in Virginia. We're always, for 25 years, we're the fastest growing region in Virginia, but that has implications. With all these people that move into our region, that has implications for your schools, right? It has implications for the transportation system. It has implications for all kinds of things. So what are those numbers? The blue is what we know. The yellowy color there is my projections. John tells me that I'm very conservative with those projections, so it could be worse than this or better than this, depending on what your persuasion is, right? These are the population numbers per jurisdiction for FAMPO, not GWRC, for FAMPO. 2020, the census year, 2023, which is the American Community Survey, all done by the Census Bureau. And I've projected numbers for the next 2 years. And these are on the low side. I've taken the rate of growth of the population back to what it was just before COVID. right? So that's how I got to those numbers, they're projections. So we will see when either the Census Bureau or the Weldon Cooper Center or somebody releases their numbers, we'll see how close these are, but I've got them on the low side. Here's the problem. Even doing it on the low side, this line here shows you the difference between the first year, 2020. 7,000 we added, 13,000 the following year, 19,000, 25,000, and we're probably going to add over 30,000 people from this cumulative, from this, right? So we're adding one city of Fredericksburg size population every 4 to 5 years in the FAMPO region, not the GWRC region, the FAMPO region. So think about Fredericksburg as a city, its population. We're adding another one every 4 to 5 years. That's just trying to give you a mental picture of the size of the problem. The population is exploding. Even if we go back to pre-COVID conditions, it's still growing really quickly. So that's going to have an impact on your counties and on the city, right? Your fire brigade, the hospital, your schools. We heard a lot about the schools in Stafford. Your road network, the transportation system in general. So no one's seen this before you, even the TAC, because we only just got it this week. These are the first maps that have been made with the new travel demand model, which we're going to ask you to approve tonight, not the map, the model. That's the picture of congestion in the base year of the model, which is 2022. So that's recently. The red tells you what is congested. The green, there's no problem, you can travel freely. And the yellowy orange color, which is hard to see there, is where it's in between those. It's starting to get congested, you're starting to get irritated, but it's not yet a complete mess. If you can't see there, and you're at the back of the room, we've put these two maps on the wall. So the left one there is the one that's on the screen right now. It's the same map. That's 2022. And the maps are the peak hour in the afternoon. So like 5 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, that's the amount of congestion we were getting. So it's not red all day, but it's red when everybody's trying to go home in the afternoon. All right. The next one should really worry you. That's what it's going to look like at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday in 2050. And there you can see it at the back there, if you're not close enough to the screen. 208 in Spotsylvania is going to be in gridlock. 3 is going to be even worse than it is. The whole of central Stafford is going to be in red gridlock, if the model is correct. Like I said, it's only in the evening peak hours, right? So that's not going to be all day. You can travel around all day pretty easily. But in your peak hours, that's what it's going to look like in 2050. So the good news is it's only a small portion of the day. Do you know what the bad news is? The really bad news? That 2050 map assumes that we've built everything in the constrained long-range plan in the long-range transportation plan. That is $3.2 billion worth of roadways and infrastructure. If we build $3.2 billion worth of infrastructure, it's still going to look like that. Unless the model is wrong. We're busy double checking everything in this model. So we think it's right. We've checked this map. We've got them to remake the map twice. We think it's right now. But that is a problem. And as we say, it's our job to show you what's coming and to offer suggestions. We don't make any decisions as staff. But if we didn't point these things out to you, then you wouldn't know. It's alarming. This is quite alarming because it means that we're not going to have constructed enough for those, if I go back, for those one new Fredericksburg-sized city number of people that's moving into the region. We're not keeping up. We're slowly getting behind. Chair, I saw a hand.
If I may.
Yes, absolutely.
Would it be a lot of work to produce this map without having built the stuff with the constrained long range plan, right? I'm curious
We can,
to know what happens if we. aren't-
we can do it, but it will just be worse. But we can do it.
Okay, I mean, yes, it would be worse. I'm curious to know where.
Make everything red.
Okay.
It's just gonna be a lot more red.
Right.
That's what's gonna happen. What is not, let me just finally just explain what's not on there. What is included in there is everything in the constrained long range plan. No additional river crossings are in that build, right? Because we haven't yet put any in the constrained long range plan. So the river crossing into Stafford from Central Park, it's not included in that. The potential one that we're going to talk about tonight at New Post is not included in that. What is included in that is the new interchange into Harrison Road in Spotsylvania from I-95, which is why, if you look closely, you will see that Harrison Road is red. And that's because we built a whole new interchange, bringing traffic into Harrison Road, to which you'll find out in a couple of weeks, eases the traffic on Route 3, but of course it increases the traffic on Harrison Road because you built an interchange.
You know, we heard in the comments that morning is also a time of congestion,
Yes.
and I've experienced that. Are we not, I know you said like this is 5 o'clock, but I see it at like between 8 and 9 too.
So there are two
Oh, yeah.
peak hours every day. There's a morning peak hour and an evening peak hour. We find
Midday peak now, too.
the evening peak is worse than the morning one. So we took the worst case scenario, right? This is the evening peak when it's the worst. And we think the reason for that, because I mean, I've been looking at this for 4 years now. The trucks from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York arrive on our piece of I-95 at about 4:30 in the afternoon. And so it complicates the traffic locally at about 5 o'clock, because that's all these trucks added to the regular traffic of commuters is what makes it so bad at 5 o'clock here. We're dealing with long range traffic as well as the local traffic.
So, Madam Chair, so when you look at, has this taken into account all the undeveloped, approved but undeveloped homes in each jurisdiction?
So the model doesn't count approved building plans. It counts population growth, and built into this model, each one of the jurisdiction's staff have gone to every census block on that map and projected the population that's going to be in that census block, right? So your staff, Matthew from Stafford, Paul from Spotsylvania, and Jamie and Mike from the city have looked at that data before it was put in. We've rebuilt this. It's a VDOT model, but we've worked on it. We've rebuilt this model from scratch, and you'll see later on when we ask for your approval, a bunch of new things are put in here. We've put in the big work from home, how that changes the traffic model. We've put the Uber and Lyft TNC type operations into the model. We've also put into the model the pattern of people getting stuff delivered at their home and no longer going to a store, right? How does that affect the model? All those kinds of new types of shopping, new types of technology, new types of movement, we put them into the model. We didn't have that before. This is a much more accurate model than the old one. And so it gives better outcomes. We also, frankly, had to change the jobs projections in the region. They weren't accurate. That's all I'll say. So we changed them. We worked with the jurisdictions. We looked at the growth patterns of jobs in each jurisdiction, and we've done accurate predictions of what the likely number of jobs will be in 2050 and 2040 and 2030. What we had from the previous model were a bit off.
Okay, so then my question would be, we've built what we could build, you know, with VDOT money on I-95, right? The express lanes are there. We're trying to work on the secondary roads. BPRA is putting in a third rail system. VRE's operations are still not back because we're still at a third of our capacity, right? For commuting up north. My question is, has the CTB seen these numbers?
No,
I guess I would ask Marcy and Bob Schneider, is a part of this bigger picture running Omni Ride. I mean, this problem is much bigger than all of us sitting here in this room because we don't have the financial resources to make the decisions that need to be made. So,
just one little part of the answer to your question is you see the yellowy color here? That would be red if we didn't build the extra 6 lanes crossing the river on I-95. Marcy and the VDOT team that designed and built those 2 new bridges, the 6 extra lanes, they've turned that from a red to a yellow. So we have improved I-95 in that little section quite significantly. The trouble is, when you get down here into Spotsylvania and Caroline County, there's not any extra capacity, right? It's the same 2 lanes that we've always had. I think it's 2 either way. Was it 3 either way? 3 either way? Anyway, it's the same capacity, but now we've got double cars. They can now go quickly through here because we fixed it. But the problem has moved down here and northern Stafford, which suffers from that problem of having all those military bases north of Stafford. So to get around them, you've got a very small number of roads that can get you around those military bases. Garrisonville Road becomes a mess because it's the one big way of getting out to get to I-95 or US 1. So it's going to progressively get worse over time because there aren't the grid, like teeth in your mouth. If one's missing, you can't chew properly. So that's what's happening here. There's no way to get over the FBI and Quantico properties. Just, there's good reasons for not putting roadways through there.
There is a roadway through there. They just blocked it. They closed it out.
Yeah, it's not,
And
correct,
9/11,
correct. There
2000,
is an
they closed it.
internal road there, but it's not available to us.
No, it's
So the
a
traffic
public road. They
now has
closed
to
it.
go all the way around.
so then I go back to my last question and then I'll stop. When could this information be presented to CTV board?
Well, that's complicated because we don't have the right to speak at the CTV board unless we speak during the 3 minutes public comment period. So we would have to ask our CTV board member from our region to ask for us to be given a slot, or for her to make the presentation, or for one of you to be invited to make the presentation, or whatever. But we would need to we can't just say, hey, we want to go and speak unless we do the 3 minutes.
Well, I think it's incumbent upon us as a board, ask Marcy to make sure this information gets communicated. We can't sit here on our hands.
We only made these maps yesterday, so they're brand new. We haven't had a chance.
Updating the model across the state, I don't know if that's a you question or a Kathy question. Or you, or is FAMPO just updating? Like,
So
were you told to update it by us?
there is a law.
Well, there's that.
The law changed. The law changed. It used to be every 7 years that the model, which is owned by VDOT, got updated. Now the law has been amended to say we have to do it every 5 years. So this is the 5-year update. 5 years from now, we'll have to do it again. VDOT owns it. We sold it to VDOT for about $2, I think. And VDOT now owns it, and VDOT updates it at their cost. But it's for our region, so we are entitled to use it to make these maps. So VDOT has just finished the process. They're coming here on the 30th to do training for FAMPO staff so that we can learn how to use some of the software. But we asked them to make the first 2 maps so that I could show you this before you voted to adopt the model. But those are the first outputs we've got. So nobody at CTV will know anything about this. They know we all have models. They know we update them every 5 years, but they won't have seen these specific maps because we've just made.
Okay, and Pam has a question first, and then we'll go to Jan.
So I am going to skip what Supervisor Bomsey was mentioning because we were both on the same page. So I'll skip the items that you already mentioned, but I just think that we were going at this in bits and pieces. And I understand that we live in this area, but outside of going to work and coming back, there's traffic coming through from other places that we cannot control. And I don't understand why we are doing it all by ourselves instead of involving Transurban, VDOT. VDOT owns a lot of these routes, so yes, they give us some funding here and there, but this is bigger than us, and I think that everybody needs to sit at this table and figure this out. This is just too big for us to be regional on just this right now. Okay, I think that, yeah, Marcy's one person, but CTV, and it's not about, getting approval. This is something that we have to do. Everybody sits at the table and talk about this. We have RTA, but even that, to me, I think that a lot of people need to be looking at everything, because we fix one piece and we take it south, and then we block them up again. So everybody needs to be looking at this, and we need one resolution. Everybody has a different model. Even us, we have a staff that has a different model for our area, and we almost came up with another transportation study. We need one wholesome study for the whole area, and including where the cars are coming from, north and south, east and west.
Dan,
I guess I was wondering, like, if all of the transportation commissions are doing this all across the state, then somebody like CTV is taking all of that information and trying to figure out what needs to happen next.
So what happens is that not every region is on the same timetable. It's like seats in the Senate. We update ours this year. Richmond updates theirs next year. Somebody else updates theirs the following year. So it doesn't all hit the public eye and your eye at the same time.
I'm sure everybody has 2050.
Yes, I think, well, some regions are behind on, like, for example, the TPB in Washington, DC, their current long-range transportation plan is the 2045 one. They're still working on the 2050, right?
That's
So
what they believe.
they're busy building their model now. We're finished. We're done. They haven't yet finished theirs, and we gave them comment on some of their documents this week because we are jointly not audited, what's the word? We have a review by the federal government every so many years jointly with the TPB in Washington. And so we've looked at their congestion program, and we have given them comments this week because they're busy doing theirs. They're going to take another year before they get there. So they're not all going to hit the public and the boards of the various regions at the same time. It's going to be staggered like the Senate seats. They come when they come.
Looking at like this in a comprehensive way.
Well, what happens is that the OIP, the Office of Intermodal Planning Investment, which is kind of the sister agency of VDOT in the Transportation Department of Virginia, they produce what they call needs lists, right? Now, their needs lists are supposed to look at congestion and look at accessibility and look at whole metrics. And on a map across the whole state of Virginia, identify the needs. And based on those needs, they score smart scale projects. And if there isn't a need in the area where you apply for a project, then you don't get funding. So the place to have the debate is when they develop the next round of smart scale needs, the VDOT needs, or the OIP needs, VTrans needs is the official name. So when they decide on the VTrans needs, that's the point where you want to have that conversation. But they're not going to come here and present them to you and I. They present them to the CTB, and the CTB takes action. So that's where the rubber hits the road, where those needs are identified, because if they don't put needs on all of those red lines, because they're only looking at the needs in the next 7 years, which is typically what they do, they're not going to look that far into the future. They're going to look at about 7 years of congestion into the future for smart scale.
so there's a few more questions. I know, Monica, did you have a question?
No, I mean, I had more of a comment. I'm just gonna keep it.
Okay, Chris had a question though, right? And then Drew.
Or do you want to go first?
Will your brief discuss the new data points that you mentioned briefly? Will that be in this presentation, like the actual new data that you're incorporating in, like you said, mentioned some.
Yeah, so leader has a presentation in your agenda just now about the model
Okay,
specifically.
the model.
And then feel free at that point to ask questions. I'll be here to help you. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I asked that because I don't want to, if it's coming, I don't want to like ask about it now, so.
We'll talk about some of the metrics in the model.
But I guess it's kind of a question comment based off of something Meg said. This isn't based on destinations, new destinations. It's just based on projecting volume on the existing destination. Is that correct?
So it includes new road sections.
Right, but if we recognize what's happening, why wouldn't the counties also in their comprehensive plan be trying to
So let me
develop areas to avoid some of
let me tell you two things that we did. We added trips to Kalahari, even though it's not built yet. So that 2050 model has included that, right? We've estimated, so it might not be the exact right number of daily trips, but we've estimated the trips that are going to go to Kalahari. So there is in that transportation analysis zone, which is kind of a nice word for a couple of census blocks together, sort of thing. We've estimated Kalahari. We have, and please don't anybody from Fredericksburg shoot me, but frankly, it's true. We have reduced the jobs growth in Fredericksburg because the jobs growth that this board adopted for each locality in 2017, the Fredericksburg jobs growth was predicted at much higher than what's happened between 2017 and now. So we've slightly reduced that jobs growth because it was a little bit unrealistic. We have added in some of these physical projects that we know are they're already under construction. The VA clinic is in there, Kalahari is in there, some of the developments in Stafford are in there. And then we also pressure tested the system. So we made 2 fake projects. We created a fake big new project near Centerport Parkway in Stafford, as if there was a project built there, and we pressure tested this thing to see if it would work if we keep on adding projects, if the model will still give you accurate outcomes, and it works. We added another project in Spotswood, what the other project was, but we've added fake projects just to test the model, and it's working. It's
So that-
the right outputs.
that methodology will be, it's part of what you're going to discuss. So
We're going to get a summary.
Summary.
So if we could spend 3 hours just talking the model if you want, but that will be.
so offline, then we could have another discussion about.
Well, you can ask some questions now tonight,
Okay.
but if it becomes too much, Chairperson, then you can call timeout and we'll follow up with the individual members.
So Chris had a question, and then Marcy had a question, then
Yeah, just-
back to you, Meg.
Oh, thank you. So just real quick, so this is we've had models in the past.
Yes,
How have they done?
reasonably well, but date them if
So Marcy's question.
we
Great minds and all. Okay.
remember, it's a little bit like, I don't have an analogy, but because we update them every 7 years and now every 5 years, we keep moving the model, right?
Mhm.
So to know if it projected very well for 2045, we don't know because we haven't got to 2045 yet. But we know that it predicted quite accurately for the first 5 years. But the longer you go into the future, the more unknown quantities there are. Like, what if Kalahari goes bankrupt? What if you build a different thing, right? So there are things you can't predict far into the future. So what it does into the future is does averages. The average population growth rate will be X.
But my question, and I don't, is that how long have we been doing this? And if we've been doing it since, 2000, what did the 2000 look like in 25? Or is it accurate? Or was it off a lot? And have we been adjusting for what actually is happening and not what we think would be happening? You know what?
So the model itself, because it's based on actual population numbers now,
Right.
and a reasonably accurate prediction of population, and the same with jobs, et cetera, it's pretty accurate. The only time it's not accurate is when people don't like the numbers that are projected and they want to then change the numbers. So not yourselves, but whoever was on the policy committee in 2017 adopted some numbers which I'll just say were
Fuzzy math.
speculative. And so the previous model had some jobs numbers for Fredericksburg and some population numbers for Spotsylvania that were a little. Anyway, we've cut that. So we've now got fairly accurate population numbers. And I didn't bring them to you all to vote on them because it's not about voting, it's about accuracy. It's not about whether you like the number, it's whether it's right.
And just like a quick example would be, VRE, if VRE was put in the model that it would do X because Sponsi joined. And yet it didn't reach that level, it's actually fallen, we obviously account for that.
In 5 years, the next update, we take that out. So this model does not include a train station in Caroline County. It does include the new VRE train trips that will be added by 2030. So they've talked about adding more capacity, more train trips, and Amtrak will add more train. We've added those in. We've put the new Fred transit routes in there. We've added Bob's OmniRide routes that have just recently been added. They're in there. So those things have been built in. We've removed things that never happened. And so we're getting much more accuracy with this model than previous models.
Okay. John, did you have anything you wanted to?
Say, yes, this is a gravity model with origin destinations in between zone. And Chris, yes, they do power graded. So in the full length, you can see they rewind the model basically, then run it and say, okay, did that match what actually happened? And so they're aiming, normally it's less than 5%. They usually have a kind of a threshold of about 10% versus expected. So if the model says 50,000 cars on this segment of roadway and it says 60,000, they're like, okay, fine. But if they run it back and then run it forward and it's way off, they go, hold on, we need to adjust something. Maybe like this origin destination is not linking to the network, right? But yes, they went back and did some good calculations, running modeling with actual data.
And in November, they put those devices out on your roads to count the actual cars in November. So that kind of resets the model back to the exact number of vehicles per day on that road. And weren't informed about that, and the one hand didn't talk to the other hand. And so they were like, hey, is FAMPO putting stuff on our poles? So yes, we put stuff on their poles.
And Meg, you had a question then.
Yeah. So when you reference Stafford projects, I know we had a very large distribution center. The by right one that's done there off Centerport Parkway, but then the North Point project off of Route 630. And, I remember we were gonna do a tour down at the port. And as we know, the port is bringing a lot of truck traffic up here. So how is that? That's obviously a different component than the census tracts. And what are those projections? Just quick management summary. What does that look like, John?
Basically, at every single road intersection that is slightly off this map, and actually it goes into Prince William and Hanover a little bit, that data is fed into the model. So basically, as soon as that line hits up here, it's assuming all the north-south trips on Route 1, 95, and they do put the through traffic in that is provided within a table, as well as the expected growth ratios for that, a larger trend line for that.
So the entry points, like this one here on Route 3, they have an accurate count for that entry point. And the projection of how it grew in the past and the projection of how it's going to grow in the future based on the past. So at those entry points, they do a count. Now, we adjusted this one on Route 3 for a very simple reason. Those of you in Spotsylvania, you know about the big development just over your border in Orange County. We've allowed for that by increasing the number of predicted cars that are going to enter here on Route 3, because we know that development is already on its way. And so you can see it's red here. That's partly because of those additional cars.
But that transaction is in the middle of a huge lawsuit right now.
I know.
So that's, yeah. And what about the project in Supervisor Diggs' base district that was approved a couple months ago? It's called the Belmont project. Would something like that on Route 17 have been included in this?
So we relied on each jurisdiction to examine the data in each one of those blocks, and with their knowledge of projects in the pipeline. So the staff of your jurisdiction has checked the population data, the employment data, and all that.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So one was, assuming that we were going to do all of those projects, and this would still be the case, but where was that money going to come from that we would do all of those projects?
So it's, how do I give you a short answer? The constrained long-range plan is called constrained for a very specific reason. We are not allowed to put in that plan projects that we can't fund.
Mhm.
But in order to find out how much money we're gonna have, we reach out to VDOT central office, DRPT and the FTA, and Federal Highways, and I forget all the agencies. They all send us an estimate of how much money is likely to come to our region from their government entity. And they give us a projection out for till 2050 for the LRTP. And so they give us the totals. We don't decide on those numbers here. Federal Highway says across the country is going to be about X money. Virginia State will be about Y. FAMPO will get Z of the Virginia money, and that'll be this amount. And then we use that to predict how much money we're likely to get through Smart Scale, through CMAC and STGB, through all these other systems of funding.
This was generated using all of those figures.
We do it we do it every time we do the long range plan, and we adopted the long range plan in 2021. So everything was accurate in 2021 of what we were going to build by 2050.
But now it's more.
We have not changed any of that. That's why Project FINA got started, because
Right.
I'm worried that we've underestimated the cost of those. So we're going to come back to you. This is not the end of the road. Staff are going to come back to you with an evaluation of the constrained long range plan and tell you how much more it's going to actually cost.
Okay.
But we will do another one so that they can give us new financial estimates
Okay.
and we'll update it.
So we have this, but we don't know where the money would come from to complete all of those to even get to this.
Those, we have estimates of where the money is going to come from.
Okay.
But what you can see is that it's not enough to fix the whole problem. So the money that the federal highways, the Federal Transit Administration, VDOT, DRPT, etc., tell us we are likely to have between now and 2050 will fund those projects we've got on the constrained list,
Okay,
but none of the projects on the needs list.
okay.
And if we build all those projects, that is what it will look like in the 2050 slide.
Okay, so we need above and beyond.
You need above and beyond what the government says we're going to get.
Pam, you had a question?
I have another question.
Okay.
So when you did this, did you factor in at all, I don't know how you affect that, but was there any consideration to, decreased freight capacity on the highway with increased capacity available on CSX when VRE is no longer using those lines because they have a third rail for dedicated passenger rail?
Actually, I think the answer is no.
Okay,
And I think the reason for that is that we don't have an estimate anywhere of how much additional freight capacity there will be on the train line when
Okay.
the additional capacity is built.
okay.
So we don't have anybody.
I know
from
that's gonna be
CSX.
difficult to get. At some point, I would love to see that whenever they could
If they
have
separate,
that conversation.
if they separate freight and passengers on separate tracks, then you can do that estimate.
Yeah.
But while it's mixed traffic, it's.
I know
really
it's gonna
hard.
take a while. Just curious if that.
So maybe about 2035 or
Okay.
2040, they'll do the split. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Chair?
Quick question, what is the percentage of constraint out of the needs that could be funded with the funding from the government? What percentage is gonna be covered?
Percentage of.
So you have a certain amount of constraint.
Yeah.
And it's not 100% covered. It's not covered.
So,
What is the?
so
percentage?
all the projects that you have all voted to put into the constrained long range plan, in theory, are fully funded if the projections that the federal and state government have given us are correct.
And the funding that we
But-
put in
but
towards
the-
those projects. Also,
Yes, but
okay.
the additional projects which we put in the needs list,
Mhm.
because we didn't have the money to project
Correct.
the
What
funding,
percentage is that?
those are not funded.
How much is that?
I can't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to go and
So it's a percentage out of the 3.2 that you just.
No, the 3.2 is theoretically funded.
3.2 is funded.
Yes,
Okay,
but
so
there
that's
are
what,
projects in the
Supervisor
need
Gary
list that are,
asking about, and I don't think you got that answer, so the 3.2 is a total constraint.
that is the amount that the people who give us money say we are likely to have between now and 2050.
So is that a yes?
Yes,
Okay. And then the need, how much is that? You know,
that's the number I don't have in my head.
you
I'd
don't
have to
have that.
find it out for you. I'm not sure if the need list is costed, but that's harder to work out.
Gotcha. And then, the number of traffic that you have for Stafford is incorrect. I can tell you that right now. So you
In the
probably-
map,
Whatever map you have, whatever numbers you have right now is incorrect.
because
I could give you one example. There's, hotels, off of Mine Road that haven't been built for 20 years, but they will be. But they're waiting for a through road to get it to come there. That traffic is showing zero right now.
so that population estimates there are estimated by your staff.
I got you. That's what I'm
And
saying.
in 5 years, we'll go back to your staff and say, is there new development to add? And then they'll add numbers. So every 5 years, we will update that map.
Gotcha.
So we are, I'm sorry, may I? So we, I think, as the localities and the elected officials for different areas are accountable to make sure that our staff is doing good work to make sure they get accurate numbers to FAMPO, because that goes into this. So if that's a concern we have, we need to make sure that they're giving accurate.
Every 5 years. In between, we don't mess with the numbers.
Okay.
We do it, VDOT hires a consultant, and we give them numbers, and we go to the jurisdictions and ask them to confirm the numbers. And I must say, the numbers are a whole lot better than they were in the old model. You know, everybody wants to show they're doing a good job, so I suspect all those years ago, people were jockeying and saying, hey, we're gonna improve, but gotta be realistic. So we didn't let any politicians see the numbers. We did it on the basis of statistics, not on the basis of we're gonna do better, because you know what happens?
Yeah.
So those are accurate numbers. And the one good thing is you can see on that model where the new bridges over the river on I-95 have improved the situation. Because it's not red in that section of I-95 anymore. It has improved. Also, if you look carefully, there is a portion of US 17 there where it goes between the city of Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania. I forget what it's called. It's just Tidewater Trail there. It's improved. It's not red. It was red, it's now yellow. And there's another section of road in Spotsylvania where you can see we've improved. So we've improved some sections by the construction, but the trouble is the growth is too fast. We are the fastest growing region in Virginia, and the growth is just too fast.
Just a couple, you had a question, Will, and then Drew, and then Meg.
I just wanted to follow up on Supervisor Bonke's point before about sort of effective ways of communicating this to Richmond, right? My question is, and this is someone relatively new to this, is there any kind of institutional organization that advocates for the 95 corridor, the way that, you know, the MPOs and the jurisdictions along the 81 corridor kind of speak with one voice to the state about the corridor? And if there isn't any kind of formal way for the MPOs and jurisdictions along the 95 corridor to speak to the state sort of in one voice, right, about the problems with the 95 corridor, then I mean, it's something we work on, right? That we need to be speaking with one voice with the Northern Virginia NPO and Richmond NPO. This is just a 95 problem, right?
I don't want to use the 3-letter word, the 3 letters that we, but that's probably how they do it, is through an RTA.
Yeah.
What did you say?
No.
That's in fact essentially how they.
Set me up, didn't you?
Actually, you're not far from the truth, because the Northern Virginia people that do this are not an MPO. It's complicated. The Northern Virginia MPO is actually the DC MPO, and they don't get involved. They throw everything over the fence to the Northern Virginia
Transportation.
RTA, and they are the ones that raise extra tax money, go and fight with VDOT and everybody else and get all those things constructed. So it is actually not even an MPO. Richmond is both. Richmond has an MPO. It also has a transportation authority. The trouble is, to answer to your question, the I-95 corridor is not one unit. The I-81 corridor, there's only one organization. It is one unit, and it's an RTA, sort of. It's an unusual RTA, but they have one organization. We have 3 separate organizations, and we don't talk to each other as much.
But Ian,
Seems like a problem.
not just jump in front of you guys, but just, 64 though. You know, I mean, that was their common enemy, is 64, right? All those jurisdictions. So did that stop at did they have the same kind of situation we would with 95? You know what I'm saying? Like, so you would have Hampton, Norfolk, Virginia Beach,
In one organization down there.
but how far? How far up does that go?
Well, actually, there is Jamie Jackson was part of that organization, so might know better than I. James River. So
So it's not all of 64.
HRTPO is the organization, and they do most of that corridor.
Yeah, so Jason County, and Williamsburg, I don't believe.
Okay, so it's not all of 60. So it's kind of the same situation we have.
Splitting it. There's you have the MPO, then you have what's HR TAC. That's their funding source that actually, they don't have any transit element to it. It's basically their money machine to help build the bridge. That's what that is that's to deal with their collection of the river crossing, the tunnel, the mega projects. What am I missing, Mercy?
They're the ones you remember you all got cross with because your
Right,
got shoved into their pot.
right, right. Drew, you had a question?
I just wanted to rewind a little bit. These colors are based on what time of the day again? 5, okay.
It's the peak, it's not exactly 5 PM, it's the evening
Whatever the
peak
is.
hour.
Okay, so that's evening peak. That's worst case scenario in 2050.
Not necessarily.
It's the accurate scenario, but only for that portion of the day.
Right.
So earlier in the day, it might not be like that.
Did you?
We can pull both midday and AM, but it drops relatively a small amount. So
Okay.
like point A, like you can kind of drop it a color, but not quite. But even in our PM peaks, you might have different areas that are congested, say Central Park, which isn't as red, become red.
I think that'd be good from a, trending kind of way.
The trouble is that there are endless permutations of this that you can do. So we have to pick a smallish number. Because each one to calibrate and run this model takes a few days. So VDOT will be months if we give them a whole lot. So we can pick sort of 2 and give them those, but we got to not have an endless number of options.
So I would just think morning, midday, this time. You got 2 peaks in midday.
Probably handle that. Remember, we're not paying for this. VDOT is doing this for free for us. So just acknowledge that it's not our resource that I'm using, it's theirs.
All right, Maggie, you had a comment.
I just had, since there are a lot of new people in the room, going back to the I-81, like I remember at a VACO conference, they all had the I-81 buttons on. They probably did the same thing at the city. But the reason, and Marcy can correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason they did that is they saw all the state money going on to 95. And they're like, hey, we've got an interstate over here too. Don't forget about us. And so that's when they started fighting. On the river crossing here, the reason that the state got involved and funded that river crossing north and south was because they had the worst traffic in the United States. And they realized from an economic development standpoint, we can't have this. That's why the state stepped in on that. But, and then Pam, Dr. Young brought up a question or a statement about transurban. The way I understand transurban and the express lanes, and Marcy, if you could validate this or correct me, that would be great. That we have a 99-year lease, meaning the state of Virginia has a 99-year lease on transurban, and that nothing can really change on that master agreement.
It was 75 years.
75, okay,
But I mean, they can add, like, they've added things,
okay.
like the total amount of extension.
Northern Virginia added changes.
And then they, like, the Opitz Boulevard kind of thing. And then they can come back and kind of renegotiate. I mean, they've looked at many different things, allowing trucks on, not allowing trucks on. So there is some wiggle room, but it all has to be negotiated.
But it's more on their,
Well, correct, if it's not gonna benefit them, then they're not going to agree to it.
that's what I
So
wanted to
it
do.
just-
There is a clause in the agreement that's, I read it, was asked about this 2 weeks ago, that says that if you add capacity, not them, if the state of Virginia adds capacity on 95 or on US 1, it becomes a, forget the word, chargeable event or something. Compensation event.
If it
And you
impacts
gotta
their,
write them a check for a lot of cash because you are potentially impacting their ridership on the express lanes.
Right, but there's a little caveat that on Route 1, it has to be 55 miles an hour or above, which you only have one little section in Stafford County that's 55, which, I mean, we're never gonna bypass Route 1, probably. So, I mean, if we were to build a bypass to Route 1, then it would be a compensation event. If we're just gonna widen existing Route 1, chances are that will not be a compensation event because like that 55 zone will actually be reduced.
But if we add lanes onto I-95
95,
or on US 1,
yeah, correct. You can add lanes on Route 1 as long as it's not 55 miles an hour or above.
so if we add
You
lanes
got that clear?
and make them drive at 50 miles an hour, that's fine.
Yes.
we can lower the speed limit in that 50.
Oh, you do, I think. Yeah.
How about, improving the 301 corridor?
You are?
So sorry,
Chairman,
this is the chairman of FAMPO CTUC.
Tim Welsh.
It doesn't talk about through.
Okay. I had the audience of the governor. And when I introduced myself, his wife asked, where are you from? I said, Fredericksburg. She says, he looks at him and says, that we're on 95 comes a complete stop all the time. I just looked at him and I said, we gonna do it about it. And he said, well, I'm not, and he gets into, oh, I'm trying to do it. I said, listen, all these committees up there, we're gonna do the problem. And then Transurban handcuff us in doing what you're trying to do. His response was, well, if they ever want to do business again, they're gonna negotiate, we're gonna negotiate. So well, that's fine, Danny. I said, at the end of the day, why don't we take I-85, push it through the 301 corridor to the Area Nice Bridge, let Maryland figure out their side. Then once you get across the Bay Bridge in Annapolis, it is a beautiful road all the way to Delaware, all the way to Wilmington, Delaware. Beautiful road. And people who don't need to go through Baltimore and DC, don't need to go through Baltimore and DC. Bypass it, go to Jersey and New York, and Boston or wherever. And he looked at me and he says, it's a great idea. You might have pitched that. Now, you're going to Governor's Transportation Conference, right, this week? Take that map with you.
But that,
Highlighter marker on 301.
but that's not new though.
I'm not speaking.
That one is not new.
Not on the-
Social engineering, Ian, come on.
Insanity.
You're the elected.
It's doing the same thing over and over again, except in a different result. So we can only put so many lanes on that property in the next 100 years, or, well, what are we gonna do after that? Okay? You gotta disperse some of this stuff and not make it all go down the same road. And that's.
Thank you.
Monica.
Monica.
Now, what happened to?
You know,
that?
thank you.
What happened to it?
I love that. I'm gonna use that. Oh, that's fine and dandy, you know, when the politicians start speaking, we use it with my colleagues, right? So my question was, what does it take to run that model? I know we're wondering, what if we do this? What if we do that? I know it takes a few days to run it. I'm just curious at some point, because Chair Hayes brought it up, the RTA dirty word, phrase. At some point, could we see if we had funding from something like that, if we decided to regroup and come back and reconsider in light of our present realities, and what we're looking at, what could that do on top of the other expected funding? I think it would be very helpful at some point to come back and look at that.
We can certainly look at different alternatives. The model doesn't model cash, it models roadway segments. So.
Well, I mean, with
we
the
would have to
projected,
say
you had a list, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you had a list of things that we could do. So, I mean, it's purely hypothetical,
Yeah.
but if we were to do some of those things that were on that list, how could that impact what we're looking at in those out years? I think that would be very helpful for us
That
to
we
understand.
can do, we can actually run the model, but we have to get a specific list of projects and
Okay.
specific.
Okay,
So we need.
so
to
if we
talk-
come back to it, we'll bring this back and
you-
look at
Yeah,
that.
we need to talk, you tell me which things you want me to model and.
Okay.
So I just want to move on. into some
Thank
time. The Long Bridge, they officially broke ground. There's the ceremony, quick photograph. That's the rail bridge across the Potomac. So construction has started. There's just the picture of what it looks like. This is the, I worked out by some analysis that this photograph picture drawing is flipped. So east is actually west on here. But if I flip it the other way, then you can't read any of the text because it's back to front. But actually, this is the east and that is actually the west. But anyway, this is the existing Long Bridge. There is the brand new Long Bridge, which they just started digging this week. That is a brand new bike path and pedestrian path that they're building next to that bridge. That is the current yellow line metro subway line of DC over there. And there are the road bridges that currently exist. So they're fitting this in between these two rail bridges, if you wanted to know where it was. That's what it looks like. Quantico station is finished. Third track section is laid. The station renovations and upgrade is done. They're inviting us at FAMPO to join them for a launch, and they're even providing a VRE train from our localities to go up and attend the launch and come back again. There are the details for you. We'll send these slides out so you can look at that. Now we have a quick fun thing. We've realized that people come to our meetings and use terminology, right? And we as planners use terminology. So for the next 3 policy meetings, I'm going to just introduce you to 2 words. Most of you know them already, but we don't all have the same understanding of them. And I've got my lovely magician hostess to join me over here. And we're going to just talk about some terms. It's a quick thing. It'll be 3 minutes and we'll be gone. The 2 words of the month, right? So here are the 2 words of the month, the concept, and whatever else. Jargon. So, who are bananas? We'll let you know in 4 slides time. But first, let's talk about 2 words you've probably heard. What is a NIMBY and what is a YIMBY, right? We had a gentleman come to our last river crossing big public thing here, and he stood over there and he said, "We are NIMBYs and you better listen to us." He pointed his finger at us. What does that mean? So we're going to talk to you about these 2. And so NIMBY typically is someone who opposes proposed development in the vicinity of your house, right? Don't want it. It's used as a pejorative though. It's not a positive thing, it's a negative. It means you're a bit of a pain because you're always against everything, sort of. Few people describe themselves as NIMBYs, although that gentleman did come here and tell us that they're NIMBYs. Many organizations have got these kinds of values, so you can notice that. What is a YIMBY? Yes, in my backyard. In favor of development, supports housing development in the vicinity of one's residence. It refers to a movement. There's actually an organization or 2 around the country that are YIMBY organizations. They have local chapters, they have figurines, they have conferences. Are they good or bad terms, and are these things good or bad, right? Well, it depends. And we've got the lovely leader over here to help us understand.
Yeah, essentially, our sort of takeaway from it is that both are simplified approaches and understandings of development, and can be kind of reductive in that sense. So NIMBYism It's just generally across the board against development, specifically in the vicinity of one's residents. And kind of originating from this idea that not all progress is good. So they do have this argument that, okay, we shouldn't just keep going forward, but we need to actually evaluate like the quality of the development that happens. Yeah. And so oftentimes you'll see action being taken opposing nearby development, and those are community efforts, grassroots efforts. However, where NIMBYism falls short is recognizing that not all development is bad. Again, that's how it's kind of simplifying this approach to development, where it's no development, none whatsoever. Some development might be necessary or might be beneficial to the region. And also, it can also be the very vocal minority that is that are the NIMBYs, I guess. And so considering future residents in that area, other people within the region that would be impacted by that development.
Do they always use yellow signs?
No.
I mean, I'm just.
What is a YIMBY?
Right, so NIMBYism, the opposite of NIMBYism, and on the timeline here, NIMBY really comes around after people have already been pointing fingers, calling other folks NIMBYs, right? And this is self-asserted. We are YIMBYs, we want more housing, more development. And it's also a response and reaction to housing shortages most frequently. And people believe that you increase the supply of housing, you're meeting this demand. And it's also gonna maybe reduce costs in housing too by pushing in more development. And so, like Ian said, there's a lot of like formal organizations that use the term YIMBY. There's YIMBY RBA, YIMBY Nova, and all of those advocate often against constrained housing markets, against restrictive zoning, like I guess single family home zoning for so that more development, more housing units, all of that. So again, kind of reductive, not all development is good, where this is just saying more development quantity. It's not necessarily considering the quality of that development. And also, it's not necessarily working when you look at lowering cost of living, lowering rent prices. We just found that so much as a 10% increase of housing units only decreases rent by 1%. So it's not even necessarily working in that regard.
But they both have good and bad aspects, and in both cases, not all development is good and not all development is bad. You'll always be against, always be in favor, you're gonna make bad decisions. You have to actually think, not just knee-jerk react. And bananas is build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything, so I don't know who coined that. It's probably some irony or, you know, it's a tongue-in-cheek term. Are you bananas yet? Next month we'll do some more terms. Governance Transportation Conference, as you heard, is this week, 23rd to the 25th. I'll be there. Some of the politicians from the region sometimes go. I don't know if any of you can, but that's the end.
All right.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Ian. So our next item is the 9A FAMPO Urban Bicycle Pedestrian Complete Series Plan.
Good evening, everybody. I'll make this really like the Complete Streets Plan for the FAMPO urbanizing. Next slide, please. So what is Complete Streets? Complete Streets is a street that has travel for everyone. That's pedestrians, cyclists, transit, and automobile. That cannot and should not be every street. Good planning helps us choose the right streets. So FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, the policy is now to make complete streets the default approach for design. And they have made funding available through the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act. So Frederick Proposing and Stafford, all of you currently have your own bike ped or pathways plans that you're currently working on or have completed.
And what we'd like to do is help coordinate that work into an overall regional plan so that you can access more of this funding. Next. So the way we're gonna do this, FAMPO staff is gonna collaborate with your locality planning staff. We're gonna help identify the critical network gaps between your plans. We'll link them together and make a we're going to start with your comprehensive plans and your bicycle and pedestrian plans and work from there. Now, note that this is limited to your urbanized areas only. So we're not gonna try to like run the path all the way to Lake Anna for the courthouse in Spotswood, for example. We're gonna help help you develop appropriate routes and appropriate facilities recommendations. We need help with that. And then once that's all done, we're gonna produce the regional complete streets plan that will support your planning and funding programming applications, such as transportation alternatives, smart scale, and the other ones that are coming up. And then we'll help you research funding sources, like the ones I just mentioned. So pretty much it. Next slide. So the next steps, this is in the UPWT for FY20. And just need the support of our leadership. I've discussed this initiative with the TAC and some of the planning staff from each of your counties. And we're gonna be gathering the data and discussing the project further in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, this is exciting. Thank you for working on this. But my question is, it says it's limited to the urbanized areas. So if we're looking at places where we definitely would need some sidewalks, like I have a stretch where children walk all the time to school, but there's no sidewalk. Those are not included because it's not dense and urbanized. Are those things we can still look at? Like, I don't know what the parameters are for how we
can
consider.
start with the bike ped plans we currently already have planned routes in place.
Okay.
And we're gonna look at the gaps between the counties. We're gonna look at low hanging fruit. So we're gonna have draft plans and we're gonna review them with the TAC, review them with you guys. Look where we can like figure out where the gaps are. So if you have a place in mind, it's certainly give it to me.
Okay, we can still look at that.
Yeah,
but
we can
generally we're looking firstly at the urbanized areas because that's where you have more density. But if there's something like, okay, there's an outlier, there is a lot of foot traffic, like my example, we can still look at that. So there's this stretch down Courthouse Road to the high school, and a lot of kids walk that way. They walk to the schools, they walked all the way down to the dollar store, and most of that area has sidewalk except for once you get to the high school and a little bit past that. And then you turn right down Andrew Chapel to the VRE, there's nothing that goes there. I mean, it's about a mile total to the VRE. It's not very long, but.
So something like a gap between an existing sidewalk and a school would be a perfect example.
And a train station.
And a train station, right?
Something like that would be a perfect example of a gap in the network that.
Okay.
Yes.
So a real quick question, will this add projects or are you looking at the existing projects? Because I'm just using staff, for example, that we need to start completing the projects that we have, or perhaps helping us better compete for the funding.
Right.
For the project.
So this is not gonna be adding any program projects. This is gonna be focusing on the projects you already have. And it may be adding like, not projects, but plan, like an overall plan, and mostly repackaging work that you've already done so that it is.
And filling in some gaps.
Have a master transportation plan that we just completed, so that should give you everything that you need there. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, we'll use the existing stuff that all your jurisdictions have, combine it in a plan, identify one or two gaps, right? But then you'll decide whether that's ones that you want to pursue. But once you've got it in an official complete streets plan, you then use that plan to apply for federal funding. So it helps you get more money for the projects you want to build anyway. And the big thing is it doesn't cost you any money because we're not hiring a consultant. We're going to try and do it in-house with our staff, assisted by county staff. So there's no cost to this, but it does give you a document that you can use in your application to get federal funding for sidewalks, bus stops that Jamie might want to build, or bike paths or whatever.
But really, I just don't know.
So is that federal funding a matched thing, or is it the
It depends
funds
on. it-
needed?
So in the slides, there are links to the funding list.
Okay.
And it's,
So you could get, depending on the scope, you could get all of it or some of it.
Some federal grants require 20% match. Some of them don't. It depends on what the
Outcome is.
It's like our past ones that have come, and it's like, oh, we have to spend so much money and then we get some money. But
So the sidewalks to nowhere, we can kind of all putting them together, that we can start connecting them or something.
yeah, you fill in the gap
Really
between two
expensive.
existing sidewalks.
super expensive. Well,
But you'll decide where, like, that's not up to us.
Right.
We just facilitate this process, and then your jurisdictions
Right.
work together and design where you want to put an extra sidewalk or a bike path. Or just document the existing ones that you know you already want, but together in this plan, so you can say, yes, you have a complete streets plan. What Carrie hasn't told you, and then I'll shut up, is that we're required to do it. Because that bill, that act of Congress says that if we don't have a complete streets plan, we're required to spend 2.5% of our staff time forever doing this anyway. So we might as well just get the plan, and
Yeah.
you can apply for the funding and build whatever you want to build.
right. Do you have a question?
It's not so much a question as a comment. I think this is really, really great, right? I think that there's a ton of bike ped conversations going on in jurisdictions separately from each other. And I know I've had a lot of informal conversations with my colleagues in other jurisdictions about points of connection, right? And we would like to see it. So it's just a comment. Say I'm really excited to see that put down on paper. Because we haven't done it before. That's really great. Yeah, like for example.
Fantastic. All right, thank you.
you,
All right, next up is 9B FAMPO travel demand model update.
Leader's going to give you an overall summary, and please ask a few questions. Chair, if it gets too complicated, you'll gong us out. And
Yeah.
then we'll follow up. We'll follow up with more detail with members
That's great.
by email. Or
Yeah.
as you like.
yeah, I know we've already talked about the travel demand model a lot tonight, but of course, welcome any questions you have. Next slide. Yeah, so this is again, just kind of a summary that yes, we've updated the travel demand model. So we can more accurately project the future conditions. This icon, I guess, kind of just shows you that like workflow, the model flow of model inputs to outputs, how a travel demand model works, very generally speaking.
This is your question.
Okay.
This is every trip generation, mode choice, highway assignment. This is the whole process of how the little artificial people figure out how to go.
And the important part is actually that other chart, because that tells you what's going wrong in our region.
Right, and we did present these findings last month to you all, where it shows the ratio of growth between vehicle hours of travel compared to vehicle miles of travel, if you remember, and how much more vehicle hours of travel are growing relative to vehicle miles of travel. Slide. Ian mentioned this earlier, but it's some of those general travel trends that have been incorporated into this model update. So this is the work from home, how that's been included in the model, e-commerce, transportation companies, connected technologies, and way with the top one in this commuting. So all of these things have been taken into consideration for this model update. Slide. All right, this gets at the question you all asked us last month when we presented travel demand model and Project FINA, where we showed you this table with Fredericksburg ranking #1 in traffic per freeway lane, daily average. And we were asked about, okay, what about non-freeway traffic? What does that look like in our region? And so we have that pulled over here, and kind of this line here indicating that FAMPO area citizens experience 44% more local traffic in the rest of the state comes from this non-freeway daily vehicle miles of travel per capita. So per person, how much, I guess, is on our network, our local network, and how that compares again across the state of Virginia.
Yeah, so that's the question that you asked us. Oh, but that's just the freeways. What about all the other roads? Well, they are all the other roads, and we're still the worst or the second worst in the state of Virginia, even for our local roads.
And moving ahead, next slide, this kind of gets to, these things aren't super isolated from one another, where we can just look at the freeway and the non-freeway, but really, if freeway traffic is displaced, that's gonna be impacting our local network, which now we've kind of established the existing conditions for both of those and are even. And seeing that, okay, we have a lot of freeway traffic, we have a lot of local traffic. If that freeway traffic, there's a crash on 95 or something displaces that, it's just a lot all around. And I'm not sure that's any of this. Yeah. This is again, kind of a more detailed look at that increase in vehicle hours of travel and vehicle miles of travel, against the different functional, classifications, road classifications. So again, kind of, you have the interstate up there, and we're seeing how much vehicle hours of travel and vehicle miles of travel are increasing, but you can also see for each different category.
And that answers to extents one of Drew Mullen's questions. It's not all the same. It's the very large roads and the very small roads that are struggling the most. Those kind of medium-sized arterials are going to perform better in 2050, but the very large highway roads in our region and the smaller minor collectors in our region, they're going to really struggle. But the ones in the middle are somewhat better. The sort of local parkways seem to be doing a bit better.
Next and final slide. So we made this presentation before we made the maps. We've already produced the congestion maps for 2022 and 2050, as you all know. And kind of reiterating what we already talked about tonight, the next parts of Project FINA, looking at our CLRP, our constrained long range plan, project lists, how they are not addressing the congestion, and also that inflation for construction, and what the affordability of our plan actually is like. Again, training on using the model will be at the end of this month.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
So
All right.
the action item is the next part of that, which is, and VDOT asked us to, not Marcy, but the modeling division of VDOT has asked us to pass a resolution adopting the new model, because then it's official. So we actually say, press the go button.
Right.
We're not supposed to use it. So we did cheat a little bit. We got them to make these two, but we're not supposed to use it until you approve. So
moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have resolution 2518.
This is a quick one because you've seen this all before. We proposed changing the bylaws with that one paragraph about allowing a remote meeting under certain circumstances. You saw it all 2 months ago. We're required to read out the text. We did that. We're required to wait 30 days. We've actually waited almost 60 days. So anybody who had an objection could have said something, and nobody has written or emailed or complained. So we fulfilled the criteria that are required to modify the bylaws, and there is the modification. But one of your members, who's right here tonight, pointed out to us that while reviewing this, there's actually an error in our bylaws somewhere else. It's been an error in our bylaws since way before I was here, and it's just a spelling typo. The word in Article 1 for localities is actually spelled localities. So if, with your permission,
So we can just, can we add that into
we
this
can
then?
amend that.
Right, right, exactly.
So whoever voted for the previous version of the bylaws, you
Gotta run spell check on these things, I guess. So do I have a motion then?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you all.
All
We'll
right.
help you in future when you have a crowd.
Yeah. Okay, next item is the new Coast River crossing discussion. And this is gonna take 2 seconds, really, as far as, I just wanted to, just point out, I can't see that these maps are so bad.
The next one, scroll down to the other one.
Stafford also has this in your
There.
comprehensive plan.
Can you
So
see
I
it?
just wanted to show you guys that it's in there, by new post. So what we would like to do is, because we can run this model for this, just to see, is it gonna make things so much worse for you guys? If it is, then maybe this isn't the right thing to do, right? But you can do the model on this, and we can just get an idea of what this would look like. So I wanted to see if everybody was in favor or had any issue with us doing this.
I have a question.
Yeah,
So the study that is currently underway of the western crossing, the crossing in Celebrate, Virginia, that is using a bespoke model, right? That the consultants are developing, right? As opposed to this proposal, which is to use this model to do a kind of cheap and dirty version of
Yeah.
that. I guess my question for you, for the staff, is like, how comparable are those? If, you know, if we're talking, I want to be able to compare apples and apples if we're talking about river crossings. And given that we're using different models to develop these, to look at them, like, are we going to be able to compare apples to apples?
So what the consultant has done on the Western River crossing is to use the old model, but with all the new data. So they've taken all the new population data, jobs data and everything and plugged it into the old model so that it is updated. But one or two of the architectural elements will be different. You probably won't know that because you'll see the result. You won't actually get into the weeds of the model. So it's not exactly the same, but of course this happens every time you work on a project because no two model runs are identical, even if you are using the same model. Because what happens is that they might choose a different time of day, or they might start the traffic from a different point on a particular road. Route 3 is the hardest one to model because there's so many intersections that mess up the traffic flow. So there's never going to be two model runs that are going to be identical anyway. The difference here is that the architecture will be different, but the data is identical that we fed into the model, and the CLRP, the long range plan list of projects, is in both. So there is some difference, but it's not a train smash. I don't think we're going to put the two right next to each other anyway. But the order of magnitude result, I mean, I can already tell you without running the model, and Marcy and the VDOT people can tell you this already. The Western Bridge would carry more traffic than this one will because the traffic out here that exists is less, right? This is less urban, etc. So that I can tell you without running the model, but how much less and what the impact will be on the surrounding roads, we can't tell you without running the model.
well, and really and truly, this is sort of just another option in our option wheelhouse, you know? And I think down on the Spotsy side, it isn't, there's some available area, right? Development hasn't come to that area. On your side, I think there's some available area over there. So it's almost looking at it, let's try and look at something that isn't being boxed in at this point. But it really is just to get an idea of what this looks like. So, Monica had a question. John, did you have anything to add to that?
Oh, no, I was just saying that the consultants are doing, they have actual traffic counts, they're doing micro simulation, they're refeeding that back into the model, so you're gonna get a lot more of a narrow focus. This one will just assume that.
Okay,
And actually, I have a follow-up question about that.
okay.
Right,
sure.
like, I wonder, is there any way, does the model account for, is this a step of a different kind of modeling question? To think about sort of like reduced demand for development, right? I.e., if we build an eastern connector, do we drive more development to the eastern parts of Stafford and Spotsy, right? And do we think about that as being a factor here, right? That we, does building that bridge flip the cause and effect in a way that might be problematic?
The travel demand model is not gonna predict how many additional housing units are gonna be built.
Right.
It can't do that.
Sure.
It has a narrow focus. What it does is it takes what's known about the trend of population, jobs growth, and other growth factors which we already know. And it fills that in there, but what it then does is predict how those trips will change by adding in the new infrastructure. So instead of people going up I-95, they might cross into Stafford at this bridge, so it will reroute traffic. It does.
So south,
It will T with Route 3,
It's way out.
way out by,
past the country club.
East,
And past
far
the
east.
grocery store.
no, in Stafford.
I'm talking about in Stafford, which.
So be
Oh.
below the,
So John, just.
no, it's your district.
John, just scroll up, please. There.
Right
There.
here, Public Park area on Route 3, it's out past the,
Walmart.
yeah.
Towards King George.
Okay, so if people are, sorry, man, so if people are crossing there and they're going north into Stafford, so how are they gonna travel up then instead of using 95? What
They're
routes are
gonna
they-
Route 3.
So currently they will go up Route 3.
We will drop them into 95. If they take Route 3.
Yeah.
Unless you're building another bridge back there somewhere, they have to come up 95.
If you're trying to get north and you're going on the east side,
Hang on a second,
Sorry.
sorry. Let's not make assumptions. We don't know where that traffic is going. You can't assume it's going north. It may be heading to King George, right?
This would help,
if they were.
this would help King George
So,
too, honestly, I think.
So that map there is from Stafford County's comprehensive plan. And there was a proposal long ago to build an outer connector. This dotted line you can see there above the star on the right-hand side is where the proposed eastern outer connector was supposed to go through and join eventually with Centerport Parkway.
was that the proposed outer connector that someone was removed from CTAC?
No, this is much older.
No,
This is much
years
older.
ago.
This is from 15 years ago.
Okay.
So that's not built. So at the moment, if we model this bridge, we will model the bridge ending at Route 3. We could also do a hypothetical model run of building that eastern connector and see what it does, right? Just to give you information. But effectively, it would just build a roadway and a bridge that would end at Route 3.
Right, so, and that was my question, is because people are gonna be going to north and south as well. They're not just going out to King George, right? Just as if we put it on the west side, we're looking for alternates to Route 1 and 5. That's the point of having that kind of connector. So they're gonna use existing roads. So that looks like if it comes through there, more likely than going all the way over to Route 1. Now they're coming up other roads like Deacon, Brook.
No.
How else do you get north from over there
So.
without going to Route 1?
You have to basically go the back way, which is what they do right now. You come down Route 3 and then they jump on Cool Springs Road and then come up to Deacon.
And then Brooks, do they take Brooks at all?
Take Brook, but typically they're going to 95 or 17. So if you look at all the, if I may add on to what you're saying, Monica, all that traffic, you can't leave our development on Butler Road during the summertime on Saturday night, because it's just bumper to bumper.
You're gonna have more. If we do something like this, I mean, unless we build a connector with it,
Those people.
that's gonna jam.
People are coming from that area anyway.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is, and if you look at our.
So if we build a bridge, sorry, I'm just trying to understand, so I'm asking clarifying questions, if that's okay. So you think if we build a bridge, that's not gonna bring additional traffic through there?
No, what I think it's gonna do is bring additional traffic to our Walmart on Route 3 out there.
Okay.
Into that shopping center. But, so there will be more traffic on that 4-lane divided highway. I think it's gonna take traffic out of the city of Fredericksburg, people that are cutting through the city. But once people get to the bridge to nowhere, at that juncture, they're coming through there
Right.
anyway.
Okay, yeah, I definitely want to see what this would. Be.
Yeah.
And my question was gonna be, thank you for explaining. I don't understand the intricacies of that area of your district as well. And then if Supervisor Diggs has something, you should
So-
allow him to.
So if, let me just say this, though.
I do have,
So,
I do have a question.
okay, let me just say this, though.
Okay.
'Cause I live down there,
Sure.
all right,
Well,
and
that
I,
would be my question. Can you give me a little bit of background about like, how did you all come
Yes.
to this? Because I think it would help all of us. to
So-
understand.
so Route 2 and 17
Okay,
is a very, very highly traveled road. And, what has happened is during the summer, a lot of people dump off there and take that back way. So I can't get out of my neighborhood on a Sunday or Saturday afternoon either, because everybody's taking that way to kind of wiggle around and get back to 95. This would give them, you would take that away from the Blue Gray Parkway then, wouldn't have that. Route 3 would still have it, but, it's going to free up. It's just another way to go. So if 95 is done, it's just another way to cross the river. So that's what this is. And I mean, it's just right down the street. If you ever want to go out there, I'll take you out there to show you. But it really does, again, we're doing our thoroughfare plan right now in Spotsy. So they're kind of coming up with concept roads and that sort of thing. And this has been on our radar for a while.
okay.
And, so we wanted to put it in the thoroughfare plan. And that's why it's there.
Can I ask you an additional clarifying question here? And, this is not anything against you, but this does personally impact you, right? So as you stated, how many other people are impacted like you are? I just understand the scope of the problem.
So we have a very large development down there called New Post. That is very large development. Couple of other smaller,
How large?
oh gosh, Chris, do you know how many houses are in New Post?
Couple thousand.
Okay.
Yeah, a 700+ unit, development was just approved in the past 6 months. And that's on Thornton Rolling Road and Route 17, so that's another big development that's been approved that I could see people,
Anything?
not a bridge. I mean,
Can I let her?
Oh. They've proffered some road improvements. So we do have quite a bit of development down there. This would also assist Caroline, I think, too, because Route 17 or 2 and 17 goes into Caroline.
Okay.
And so people are coming from Caroline up that way as well.
So just one additional question, I'll shut up because I know I'm talking a lot. This is an expensive project.
Mhm.
Either way, the other way, we know maybe we could get some help. Literally, I don't know what this will look like, but it's in smaller scale, so that's gonna look different for funding. And we already are looking at this kind of thing out into the future. So my question is, yeah, I wanna look at the numbers, but I'm also wondering, where's the money gonna come from?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna be expensive.
RTA? No, I'm kidding.
We could bring that back.
No, I mean, I just think that this is a concept road
Huh?
that very much like this other bridge has been sort of in the minds of people for a long time.
Okay.
Would I say it's gonna happen in my lifetime? Probably not. But,
I just.
let's put it on the books,
Because that's always the discussion that we end up on.
Yeah.
And rightly so. And so what I don't want to do is just go down the road and then be like, oh, we don't have the money. And some people are willing to do it and then others are not. And then it's they're raising taxes, but then there's a bridge that people wanted that don't want to vote for the funding to actually put it in. And I don't want to end up in that debacle again. So I just think that's important to have that discussion ahead of time. And I'll leave that there.
I'd love to make this a toll bridge, right, Tim?
Oh.
Your toll bridge, yeah.
So, what I'd like to share, the reason I like this concept is, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you live off. the grid.
No, it has
There's
nothing to
so
do
many
with my
by right
stuff.
subdivisions down there, in addition to all those other, the big ones down at New Post. I mean, every time I drive down there, I'm like, oh geez, there's another housing development. Is that, first of all, our urban services area doesn't go out to that part of Port Washington. So we haven't built a lot of houses out there, and quite frankly, the soil is not very good out there because we don't have water and sewer, so people have to build, wells and septic tanks. That's why there's so much development on the other side of 95 in Stafford County. So I like it because it's just another route. I think we should study it. If we, at some point, have the money to study it, it sounds like it's not gonna be that challenging, and we can add it to a list. Don't have to allocate funds to it right now, but I think that it's like anything. You should study it and look at it as another option. It may be, this option was actually around long before the river crossing up at Celebrate Virginia. So,
And if we did the travel model or traffic, that's free, right? So it's not,
So VDOT has,
I'll get you to it.
state guidance
Okay, yes.
to provide support to FAMPO for studies, not to the jurisdictions. So to FAMPO, it's free. If the jurisdictions want it, that's not part of the law that insists that VDOT supports us. They support MPOs, jurisdictions. So we could run the travel demand model, do a couple of model runs, make some maps like this, show you what the impact was, and it would tell you the answer to some of your questions, like where would this traffic go? Well, you'll be able to see that on the model. We can also do a streetlight analysis, which thanks to VDOT, they provide us with a software free of charge. So it'll take staff time, but we can do that. The reason why we have not started working on this is because there's some little wrinkles here. We have to be careful that we don't work as a staff on projects that are not authorized and are not in the Unified Planning Work Program. So we cleverly put into the UPWP that we'll do these projects in the next year, and any small research projects that the policy committee formally requests us to undertake. So we brought it back to you because unless you as a body ask me and our staff to go and do this, we're not supposed to do these other extra projects. But because it's a relatively smallish work project, we can do that under that stipulation if you all vote and tell us to go and do it. If you want a bigger project where there's money involved, then we can't do it. Then we have to modify the UPWP and probably get approval for funding and.
I don't think we need to go there right now. I think we just need to do this, Drew.
I'll say that, could you go back to the first, Stafford's older slide? When the bridge crossing, or the current bridge crossing discussion came up, I wanted to know the history because I was new and everything, and I looked at this and I looked at our old slide too. And you can see this kind of dovetails with the previous brief we had on the future congestion. That there's been the previous discussions of east and west connectors or east and west bridge river crossings, so that, and then the theoretical beltway kind of concept. And what I think this does, that's where, from my reference point, okay? Putting something out to the east, I just had to go to King George today for an appointment and then come back that exact same way. And as I made that little bend, I looked across the river and I thought, man, I could go right across the river right there. And I was thinking about everybody on the other side who does go to Dahlgren or goes into King George and all that. They got to go up to Route 3, cross over, or go down 17 and go all the way around that way. This won't offset any of what the river crossing plan that's being talked about now. This is a destination bridge. It's not intended to alleviate pressure northbound unless you guys went forth with some sort of beltway concept. But correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't it spur potential development in some areas there, or at least access for commercial development on the other side of the river?
commercial development.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think keeping that in those expectations in the foreground, as opposed to trying to, look at it as an alternative for a river crossing that's intended to alleviate a lot of pressure, puts it in a better context. At least that's the way I'm looking at this, not as an either or necessarily. But
Right.
yeah.
Right. Chris?
Okay, and one other thing I'd add to that too, is that this is a good time to put this in a plan, because there's nothing there right now. So we don't have to build around, we don't have to buy, we don't have to have those type of discussions. And plus, this is just putting it into the filing cabinet. Later on, we're gonna do it, and we've studied it. This is what the potential benefit would be to also include, it's not an getting people off the interstate, it's not doing that, it's the internal traffic of moving around our local roads. It gives you another way to get around and another spot to cross over to get people back and forth, and Dahlgren is a huge one.
Yeah.
We did a study for well, I shouldn't say we, a developer did a study for a project on Lafayette, and just the amount of traffic that uses Lafayette to get to Blue Gray and then disperse out. You can only assume that AM traffic, that's Dahlgren people heading out there, and Dahlgren's only gonna continue to increase. So if we can take this, how does that improve Lafayette? How does that improve Route 2, Blue Gray Parkway? How does that help the other roads that we are looking to put lots of money on? Would that be a better investment to do this as opposed to try to improve those? Because they're also constricted with, right of ways and easements and everything else that you gotta purchase that just drives the cost up.
Want to make sure we don't forget. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you can't talk.
Bylaws, can we have a city supervisor? That's our fourth one, speak at a meeting. I just want to make sure before.
So the bylaws don't specifically say who's allowed to speak, it says who's allowed to vote. So with the permission of the board and the chair, I'm sure if a member of the public wanted to say something, but it's up to you. They're not supposed to speak, but if you give permission.
I mean, I think, yes, please. I mean, we are talking about your district.
We've had a conversation.
This in no way was meant to circumvent anything you guys wanted to do there. This was really about, okay.
Go ahead, and then I have another question.
I guess I have two questions, an observation, if that's a. Question is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are improvements for that 217 Tidewater
Yes.
Trail already in the CLRP, right? So some of what that's one of the reasons why that particular road is actually better in 2050 than it is in 2022.
Mhm.
Like, we assume the improvements are gonna
Yeah.
happen in that area.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I guess I'm always good to study things and know more, but like when I look at this 2050 map, like the angry red part is nowhere near where we're talking about building this bridge, right? So I don't doubt, anecdotally, that this is gonna make the lives of a handful of people who were, traveling from Caroline to Dahlgren easier, right? I'm saying a relative handful of people compared to the vast majority of people in our region, but I guess considering we can't even achieve consensus on a funding system to solve the crisis problems that we have, right? Like, I don't understand. It strikes me as being as fundamentally sort of a distraction to add another like 9-figure project and even fund all the projects that to solve the problems we actually have, right?
Well,
so I mean, I knowledge is better, but I can't imagine this is going to end up being kind of a priority.
I hear what you're saying, but I also feel like we're partially in this situation of this because, we've had visions before of what to do, way before my time. That then did not come to fruition and development occurred. And now those things are no longer on the table. And so, this is just a concept. It would spur, I think, some good things for staff, for numerous localities, the city included. It would take some pressure off of some of these
Sure.
smaller roads. So,
But it strikes me as not the core of the problem.
no, but I mean, honestly, I don't know. There are some places where I don't think we can ever have a solution because we're landlocked.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's just the reality of it. And so I feel like part of what we do here is have a little bit of vision. Maybe it's a dream, but to show, okay, this is an area where we could actually cross the river. There's nothing there on either side right now, and it could make it better. I don't think it's, I mean, I think it's worth doing this very simple study. I'm not talking about getting doing the whole whack. So that's all I'm thinking. Let's go Janet and then you, Drew, and then.
So
Yeah.
in the city recently, we were kind of given the instruction by our mayor that if something did not make our vision, our city council plan, the 2-year plan, that we needed to really be mindful about adding to that. And like the rule of thumb for us is it going to take more than 4 hours of staff time? Like if it's not on the plan, is what we're asking our staff to do to take them away from the things we have said we wanted to do, is it going to take more than 4 hours? And I know that, I haven't heard that here and you haven't given us that instruction, but it occurs to me that, we do have the unified plan that we did vote on. And that takes a lot of staff time to accomplish those things. I'm all about like, yeah, let's figure it out, I guess I'm also thinking though that was not something that we put in the unified plan. How much staff time is it going to take them to do this little study?
It's one of those questions that's how long is a piece of string? It depends how much you want out of it. But to run the travel demand model and interpret the results, well, VDOT's going to run the model, not us. We're going to interpret the results and make maps. So LEADER will make the maps for you. We will also do run the street light analysis, which LEADER, how long does it take to run a street light analysis? You got to run that model and then produce some outputs from there. And then we'll write a little very short report for you telling you what we found. But I'm making this a small project.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Like that.
If after that you want to take it further, then we need to amend the BWP and we need to
Not right now.
do something bigger than that. But if you just want me to run the travel demand model to tell you what the traffic impact will be at a high level, that location, if we build a bridge and 4-lane, what would have to happen is 17 would be 4-lane out across the bridge. And T junction at US 7, Bridge 3, I beg your pardon. It's 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most model runs, which will turn into maps like that, and run streetlight data, get that analysis to determine volumes and origins and destinations where those people are coming from. And then we'd write a short report. So I don't know, 35 hours or something.
35 hours?
It depends on like how much we put into it. We can, I'm guessing.
Drew? Yeah.
Yeah, to your point, Will, I think we have, because the previous members didn't do this kind of stuff, is why we're sitting here today. And there was that, we don't need to do that kind of attitude. And some of our predecessors didn't help us out. So now, rather than just not be sitting here 5 years or X amount of years in the future, I think that's the impetus for at least doing it now. But also, there a Route 3 connector that, people that want to go east on 3 or 17 right now, the only way they can get off.
Oh, I believe you.
Yeah,
I've done that myself. I'm just saying that the numbers tell us that's not proportionally a lot of people relative to.
But we're looking at
comments elsewhere.
I would just, okay. We don't know what the internal numbers are going in that direction, right? Because this is skewed by 95 traffic that is the artery.
Well,
But it's red and orange.
It's red and orange.
This has got traffic on 17 business down here. So there is red. Yeah.
17 or 3?
17.
This is
Our 17.
Okay.
Not your
3
17.
is orange.
Be specific when you say 17, mine and.
17 south.
17 south will hold 17 business anyway. And Route 3 is orange. This is red or yellow, depending on which section you're looking at. line, the station's
Yeah.
there. So there is some red here, and there's orange there. This is not too bad right now. What will happen is that you'll have induced demand. So what will happen is you connect across here. Extra people will take that route because it's now available. So the traffic on 17 South will grow. And then the traffic will split when it hits Route 3. So we don't know where the bulk of that traffic is going to go. It's either going to go up 3 inwards into the center, or it's going to go down towards King George or Dalton. We don't know that because we need to run streetlight analysis to tell you where that will be. That's what we'll
So the
expect.
problem is that traffic must go. So that would be a concern, but again, we don't know what's
Right.
So I would just want to follow up, but didn't completely finish my thing there, Ian. One of the unintended consequences of this great river crossing we just finished on with 95 is that it's increased the local street traffic on our side because people aren't taking 95 to go south anymore, because that all bottlenecks right past Route 3, and it turns into a big traffic jam almost all day long. So what used to be the busiest road in Spotsylvania County, 95 from Route 3 to South Point, isn't being used as much because it's so efficient getting people across the river. Are you following me? Where that terminates, past where the HOV terminates there. Now those,
Where are they going?
exactly, they're terminating, the HOT is terminating going south on 95, right?
They're using back roads to get around.
So now,
what
if
they're
you
doing.
want to go to South Point or anywhere else where you go across Route 3, you take Levels Road, or you back street it all the way south. And that's going to need to be addressed, obviously, past there. But it just seems as though just looking at this, well, the data show us what is potentially going to be alleviated. And again, we're having internal like sidebar conversations about trying to find land that we could come to Stafford and say, hey, out west, we think we got a couple of rapidly diminishing options, right? That we could talk about punching across the river to alleviate, do a western crossing. So it's, again, I just want to throw out in the spirit of, problem solving, just trying to look at all options.
I mean, you all have different opinions. I suggest you let us spend the 30 hours, do the model runs, bring it to you, and then it's dead, right?
Right.
Then it doesn't become an
Right.
ongoing project. And if you want an ongoing bigger project, then we have to fund it. So let us just do 2 model runs and streetlight analysis, and we'll bring that to you. And you can decide then if you really want to get serious about it or just leave it there.
So these things can just sort of snowball. So I get the idea of saying that, but at the same time, in my mind, I'm thinking like, he is looking at all of this, and like, the funding is really important to just.
Mhm.
So it may not be expensive and a ton of staff time to go ahead and like, look at this from the level we're talking about, but at the same time, okay, let's say we do that, and then everyone around the table starts going, oh, okay, well, maybe this is a good idea, and then we're hiring a consultant, we're spending another $300,000, and then we have to fund it because we're not likely to federal funding, it's not at the scale of what we're talking about on the other side. And where is that money coming from? It's coming from things that even if we do, we're still gonna have this, that's a problem to me. So I also wanna know some sort of ballpark projected costs of if this happened, what is that gonna cost? I feel like we really need to have that discussion too. It's been a part of every other discussion. I don't know why that wouldn't be a part of this discussion. So I wanna see.
You want the cost estimate?
I mean, yeah, I think that if we're gonna go down this road, we should start looking at that, because why else would we say we're gonna dedicate staff time and then.
I'm gonna cheat and look at our VDOT cost estimating expert over there and go, can you do the cost estimate of a 4-lane bridge across the river at that location?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Right, so, and then I have additional questions, like, are we including bike and pet, you know what I mean, that's issues in other areas, right? And so, and that expands the scope of the project, so I think we need to look at that too. Just go down this road, let's do it the right way, so that we know what we're getting into, and we can actually have a full picture.
How much was the Chatham Bridge?
Possibility.
That was a rebuild, it wasn't a new bridge.
How wide is the river there at that point?
Tim, Tim, how wide is the river there?
Okay, so what I was gonna say is, we've had a lot of discussion, I make a motion that we put it on the, or I move, or ask you as the chair, put it on the agenda for next month and we'll vote on it. And Ian can bring as much information as he has available and talk about it then, and take a vote.
Do you want me to do model runs or do you want to discuss it next month?
I mean, I don't, I,
'Cause I'm
I
not
wanna
gonna
do
do
model
that.
runs, but I don't know how
I'm not
everybody
gonna
else
do it.
feels.
I'm not gonna do the work without your approval because I have to, in terms of the UPWP, either do projects that are in the UPWP or get you to specifically.
You can't, because we have to be different.
Project.
Okay, but she said, put it on the agenda to discuss it next time, not now, go ahead and do the study right now.
We don't need a motion to put it on the.
But there seems to be, some angst about it, so I hesitate giving staff direction to go ahead and move forward with it if it's gonna be more complex. I think everybody needs to know going in, what are we really voting on here? What do we have in front of us? Marcy, as head of VDOT, I loved putting you in the spot.
I mean, I think there's a lot of valid points, but I think that there's too many unknowns and too many assumptions being made. So I mean, I think that we should look at it a little bit, not,
Right,
$300,000.
Right, no.
Definitely no, but put the 35 hours in or whatever it's gonna be and see what it comes up. And I think, personally, I think Will's right in that it's not gonna come up to show a huge difference. And then that'll be a whole bigger discussion.
right, and then we can say, okay, well, let's put it to bed somewhere, I
Or
mean,
put it on the back burner.
yeah.
Just have a clarifying question to this, because I wasn't sure where we went from. Are we going to be able to include some idea of what a cost might be? Are we not having that discussion yet? Because I personally don't want to have staff dedicating time to doing this. And no offense, I know there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, let's, check this out and do it, and it's not a big deal. But I really don't want to go down that road unless it's actually feasible for us to do at some point, and what is that going to cost?
So there would be three things that we will do, if you want us to. We'll do a couple of model runs. We will do streetlight analysis to find out where the traffic is going to now. And we will ask VDOT to do a high level cost estimate of building a bridge with 4 lanes between this point and this point. There need some parameters. But beyond that,
Okay.
I think you need.
Okay, yeah, Chris had.
I was just gonna.
Yeah.
Chris asked that.
They need more.
If I might, real quick, just, and I understand everybody's hesitation, but something that I really took away from this is that after spending $3.2 billion or whatever the number is over that, everything gets worse. And these are worth the projects that we think are going to fix things. So we need to stop sitting there and going, you know what, we need a wider Route 1, we need a wider 17, we need a wider, we need connections to get around this place.
Right.
Eventually, when you pull up, you guys do Google Maps, and you'll sit there and you'll drive through and you'll go, seriously, there's red? Oh, that's because all of those cars are sitting at a stoplight. Eventually that moves. But if there's only one stoplight and only one road, that lane gets backed up real far. But if you have multiple ways to go and multiple avenues for different people to take different routes to get to their different destinations, that's what I think that we're looking at with this. And I'm all with you. I don't want to go and spend a ton of money on something that's a pipe dream or
I
that
can
we
say I
build
don't
it.
want to. If it makes sense, we can do it. I
No,
don't know what it's gonna cost.
No, I know, but what we need to do is we need to start thinking about these things now and not later. And one real quick story, we did this in our county and we want to connect Spotsylvania Park all the way out to Route 3. And as we did it, we had the maps laid out. Subdivision in the way, subdivision in the way, subdivision in the way. We got to do this thing to get around it.
Mhm.
And so that's why this concept is intriguing, is that can we at least put it in the bucket somewhere, wherever that lines up? That if federal money comes along, or if the state has extra money and they say, hey, do you have a project for us? We have one, but it's there and we've already done the work. You know, the federal transportation, big bill that goes through. They're looking for projects, shovel-ready projects, remember all that stuff?
Mhm.
So if we can get something like that, to that level, that we all can then at least have some sort of comfort that this does do something for the future. It might not take away all those red marks up there, but it alleviates any red marks that will be coming out that way. And that's what I'm looking for, more than trying to fix what has already been broken, is
Yeah.
maybe not to screw up the future.
I
So,
think it's the right path. I mean, I
Right.
agree. I just want
no, I agree.
And to just add, you said it earlier, but if we have that, now we can, if applicants come to us and they want to do something out there, but now we've got this thing
Right.
in our filing cabinet, like you said.
Yeah.
And we can say, well, you can't do, we have to work around those parameters, right? So.
So, Meg, you made a motion to,
I took that back.
okay,
It's the will of the
I mean,
board, if you wanted to give staff authorization. I mean, I would hold the board and ask them if they wanna have an actual action at the next meeting. Staff direction.
do we need to discuss this further, or,
to doing it now.
okay, so,
Yeah.
can I make the motion? Okay. I'll make the motion then to direct staff to complete the travel, or is it travel model?
Travel demand models.
Travel demand model.
Streetlight analysis and work with VDOT to get a cost estimate.
Very high level, don't go too deep.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Deal.
Can I just,
Oh, yeah.
one more thing, I have to agree with Monica, to me, it does not strike me, strikes me, as if we can't agree on how to pay this thing. Getting this, right, like, funding mechanism. right?
We'll come back to that when we.
Yeah,
talk
like,
about-
we're just adding 8 or 9 figure project on top of 8 or 9 figure project in our amendment. Right, like, that does not strike me as good use. Let's just like, unless we have a concrete idea of like where those 8 and 9 figures might come from.
I mean, Chris says that feds might have money.
Yeah, like in the couch cushions, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I heard.
Spend on everything else, why not us?
Right, exactly.
Some of that Ukraine money sent back to us.
Okay, so let's go on to, correspondence.
So I'm just gonna interfere here and say to FAMPO staff who are gonna be dealing with these next items, I will do the item that Eugene was gonna do, but for all the other items, could we just do a 1 sentence summary, because it's very late and
Yeah.
I'm sure people don't want the long version. So for each of these next 7 items, if we can just bang them quickly through. So Becky, do you wanna
Just
handle?
have one formal services agreement, corresponding bullet for your information. Second bullet are the list of local input for the federal public classification. They're currently under review by VDOT. That includes correspondence.
The staff and agency reports, John is not gonna do a report tonight on the river crossing. Just to remind you that we have set down the date for the public meeting. There are all the details. It's 5 to 7. It's gonna be the same format as the last one. Sit down and have lecture style, and it's gonna be participate, come when you can between 5 and 7 and
Look
talk.
what a VDOT one
Talk
does.
directly to
Right.
the consultant about.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. When I was reviewing the board documents, like, why are we having a meeting on the other side of the river when most of the constituents that it's going to impact are on our side of the river?
Show the necessity for the
Understand that.
So the answer is that we've now had 2 meetings on that side of the river, and we felt like we haven't given anybody on the other side of the river a meeting. So we're having this one on the other side of the river mainly for that reason.
Okay,
We did 2. The first staff level study we had it
right,
on at the VDOT Center, then we had the river crossing
Right.
meeting at the VDOT Center. We haven't had one on the other side of the river, so we just
Okay.
hope to give people another chance on the other side.
okay, question answered, thank you.
Well, we can move it if the board wants to
No,
read
I
that
just
logic.
done.
All right.
The grant award agreement, it's just again for your information, this is actually a GWRC grant and not a FAMPO grant. We always like to tell you what's going on, so you can just see we got a partial award. Becky's in charge of this program, as she was in charge of the previous one. And the 3 projects, just if you look at those roads through Mullins, that should make you very happy. We got funding to study River Road, Brock Road, and Orange Plank Road as the 3 funding. So, and Becky will be working with the consultants and with the staff from Spotsylvania County to come up with measures to reduce the crashes, reduce the problematic incidents, and hopefully improve the shoulders either side of that road.
That's best value for the effort that I've seen so far.
And the scope will come to the transportation committee, that'll be the,
Okay, it'll come to our meeting.
Gary, Smartscom?
Yes, Marksville, we had a productive discussion at staff. To March, with a letter that we'd like to send to the CG.
We're waiting to see the scoring results from Smartscale before we say anything to anybody.
Okay, and then the
Meeting schedule, Eugene is not here, but if you look, we've
Yep.
attached it also to your agenda tonight.
Yep.
And you'll see that you don't have to make any decisions about this tonight, but at your November meeting, you'll always adopt the calendar for the next calendar year. So please look through this, and if any of these dates doesn't work, please raise your comments at the next FAMPO Policy Committee meeting so that we can adjust this calendar to better suit you. Just, I'll point out 2 things. The ones in yellow are where we have historically moved the policy committee meeting to the same night as the GWRC board meeting because there is a public holiday or whatever you call the holidays, Martin Luther, and then it's the George Washington President's Day.
President's Day.
So because of those, you're in the building.
History professor. Yeah.
Not one of my issues.
So just be aware that
I know.
when you vote next month for this calendar, if you accept these dates, you're
Yeah.
voting to have a double barrel meeting on those 2 nights, which goes on late. Just realize that. You can change it before your next meeting. And then the final comment is, you see there we've added a tip submittal date. This is to help state agencies that we work with to get documents in on time so we don't have a mess. John is also working with the TAC and with these state agencies to get a little tip policy so that we fix errors before it comes to the policy committee. So we're taking steps to improve that.
Well, did you?
Is there any reason why in January and February we can't do it on the 2nd Monday instead of the 4th Monday, so we don't end up with a double stack problem?
You may.
Could we move the kids?
I'm good with that.
And then not.
Just have to make sure that we don't have other conflicts.
We have to check locality calendars for that.
Can we do that then? And then,
For the next.
yeah, and then can we vote on it next meeting then? Right,
Correct.
okay. All
This is
right.
just for you. We start the negotiation and then we bring it back a month later for
Yeah,
you
because
to
it's
decide.
a lot to do both of those things the same night.
One thing about that though is for us, at least, our board meeting and appointment to this board take place because these appointments expire at the end of December. So our board meeting come after the first meeting. So we just need to keep that in mind. I mean,
In terms of FAMPO from our side, your appointments don't expire. If your county has a rule that says your appointments expire, that's a county thing, but doesn't matter to us.
well, I'm saying for us it does,
Well, we
so.
may be able to do it at least in February, so if we get one.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying the first one in January might be problematic. We could take care of it in December, but.
Yeah.
So we're asking you to consult with your jurisdictions to sort out that detail and tell us, and then we'll prepare whatever the best
Yeah.
option is for you for next month.
Okay. Alrighty then, and anybody have any comments?
I do.
We've made.
I'm sorry. I saved this one to the very end. I would like to, meet the desire of the rest of the board. I think, given the fact that we reviewed this congestion mitigation plan and we're putting $3.2 billion into this plan, and that's what it looks like in 2050. I believe that we should ask, Lori as the chair to send a letter to Secretary Miller and CC our rep, CTB member Laura Sellers, and discuss the fact that this has no river crossing in it, exactly what projects are gonna be in that long-range plan, and send them this and also the travel plan schedule that's up there. It's hot off the press, and why not?
Second.
Is the letter requesting them to do anything?
Have a follow-up meeting to go over it. And I think that the letter should just talk about economic development for the state of Virginia. I think that, the congestion in our region, yeah, that's a big problem. I mean, how many times have we all talked to somebody in the last 3 weeks and they're like, yeah, I'm moving to North Carolina. I talked to somebody the other day, can't stand traffic here anymore. It's going to get worse. So, it's not just about us. I'm looking at it holistically, but anybody, people can chime in now if you want.
So you made the motion and Chris seconded, right?
Yes.
So you want a meeting with the secretary or VDOT or what's the?
I'm just saying we need to have some kind of a follow-up meeting to make sure that, because our CTV member, Laura is only one person on that CTV board. Everybody else covers their respective area in the state, as we know, right? And it's just human nature to only look at your area and vote accordingly. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a region where they know they've had problems for many years, that we need to bring this forward. And Marcy, I welcome any input that you have, and you may tell me I'm, all wet. I don't know how to go about this, but I feel like we shouldn't be sitting on this information and going, okay, what do we do with this?
Yeah, so I was gonna talk to the deputy commissioner this week. Governor's office. But I mean, I get the point that like the CTV, even if they don't look at it statewide, they should probably look at it regionally. Like, what does Novus look like? I mean, yes, there's maybe 2045, I guarantee there's this red too. I mean, they have a lot more money, a lot more projects within ETA and that kind of stuff, but what does Richmond make? Like, what does Culpeper? They should probably look at a whole. And I'm not aware of any presentations, I don't know, but I'm not aware, I watch most of the meetings, of any presentations where we present to the CPD annually or every how many years, what the traffic demand model looks like, what it would look like, because again, they're staggered. I think it is something that it's time to look at. We're getting to that point where, the money is a problem. The estimates have gone up significantly over the last several years, and that's probably actually redder if it had the real estimates on it now. And I would venture that all across the state, that we're just getting more and more.
So is your motion is to send the letter and request a follow-up meeting as well? I would say on top of what Marcy just said, that we request that meeting be recurring every so often, because we haven't.
Look at all of them.
Right, because we haven't been doing that. So, yeah, I would support that.
So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
I'll have to draft it and send it.
Yeah,
to you.
that's fine.
I'm hesitant because those letters have not helped us in the past, but I'll draft something and I'll send it to you and you can,
To be sweet, English.
Short and sweet.
you can,
Yeah,
you can think through the letter.
thank you for everything you do. Thank
gotta
you
go
for,
around.
thank you, yeah.
I was just.
Going backwards.
Oh, anyone else have comments?
Oh,
You gotta keep going.
anyone else? Just go down the line here.
Comments?
I would encourage people to go to the Quantico ribbon cutting
Oh, yes.
for very,
November first.
What time's the train leave again? 9 something?
I have a card, I'll show you.
Yeah, I'll give you, I'll let you know.
Okay, tomorrow morning, you will get my slides
Okay.
in your inbox, and on the slides is all that
Will
information.
be all the slides or just?
My slides, all of them.
Okay.
Bob, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I just want to say, and I'm gonna say this at all my meetings, because I'm super excited. We just went down to Georgia. This is a personal note last week. My son is a ranger now in the army. We're super excited.
Awesome,
I'm
congrats.
just gonna be talking about that.
Well,
You just got out of Ranger?
congrats on that.
Unofficially.
We have
I know. All right. So I think we're good. Meeting adjourned. I don't have my gavel or.
It's like a different.
Ready?
Okay, yeah, he's at a Ranger bat.
Afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's.
Oh, nice.
I